There's two of you.
Oh, no. Oh, sorry. There you go. 1
second.
second. Give me. Yeah. So that one. There you go. Can you see me now?
Yeah, I can see you. I could see both of you before. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why it says Caitlin Hannah. It's my daughter, so I guess I'm logged in as her, but maybe doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Oh,
1 second.
Mute it.
Okay.
Now, oh God. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna call my wife. Flaca, ¿me podrías ayudar un segundo acá con el no sé por qué tengo como dos. Hay como que abrí dos ventanas. So sorry, Ann.
That's okay.
Just 1 minute. Sí,
Le cierro un segundo, ¿eh?
Sí.
No tengo nadie que me vea.
Que hay como dos ventanas, no sé qué pasó.
Ok. ¿Por qué no cerrás la tenés acá?
Eso, cerrala de ahí.
There you
Ahí
go.
está, ahí
Ahí está.
desapareció.
Okay, perfect. Got you. Sorry, I got you on the phone. My bad. I apologize for that.
Okay.
So anyway, and very quick, this is kind of what I want to do. I will ask you questions regarding to vision training and sports. You answer however you want. Does it make sense?
Yep.
And I will chop. Can you hear me? Can you talk?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
All right. Perfect. So anyway, I'm gonna start, and then obviously I'm gonna cut some of this part, that way it doesn't come up. All right.
Okay.
Hi guys. Here we are with Ann Reuter. She's a sports vision trainer. She's an optometrist that has a practice in New York, and she was kind enough to take some time off and chat with me a little bit about sport vision training and tennis and sports. So, and thank you very much for being here. And anyway, first thing that I would like to ask you is, what really is sport vision training?
Well, I mean, this is a complex answer because we really have to talk about the visual system when we're talking about sports vision.
Yes.
So it's important that it's done through a doctor. So I'm a doctor. I was trained, and we need to be looking at the visual pathways initially. So it typically starts with just making sure that the player has the right structural capacity to train, and once they're healthy. And we know that they're healthy, we test various things. We test depth perception and eye movements and things like this to actually identify the pathways that are areas of opportunity for the player. I don't just blanket train somebody, because if they have bad neurology in one of those areas, then I could be embedding that. So I do assess all my players, make sure that I know what I'm trying to change, and then we hop into the actual training part, which is really neuromuscular. We're basically training the pathways of the brain that are involved in those visual pathways for better performance.
When you were talking about depth perception, you are considered that one a skill that every person needs, right? So that's what you're referring, that the visual part of the visual system that needs to be working properly prior to the sport vision training. That's what.
Yeah, there's about 22 things that we test to make sure that the player has the basics ability, let's say, and then we enhance from there. So in vision training, there's sort of 3 pillars. There's a enhancement piece, which is what you're asking me about, but that's sort of on the upper level. Before enhancement, I have to make sure that the skills are even there in the first place, because I can't enhance something that the player doesn't have in the first place, or the patient doesn't have in the first place. It's not just sports vision that we do this for. And then there's also a prevention piece, or a rehabilitation piece, where somebody who has been injured or whatever, then we have to go back and remodel those pathways. So it's not just for enhancement, but you in this interview are sort of honing in on that. But it's important to understand that not all players can just go into the enhancement piece. I see so many youth players that need the initial habilitation. They need those pathways to even be there first before I can really enhance.
So I'm a tennis coach, and I think timing is very important. I think it starts on the vision, right? So when somebody, let's say that I see somebody that he seems to be having a bad timing, and it's not a question of technique. Okay.
Right.
What is something I could see in him when he plays tennis that will tell me there is a vision problem here? Any way to kind of pick on that? Because many times I say, I think your eyes have a problem. And I can tell and it's very difficult to sell this.
It is, yeah.
To tell you the truth, it has been for me a challenge to say, I think your eyes are the problem. But if you could give an idea of what you see when somebody probably has a vision problem and is playing tennis, what are the symptoms or things that you could see?
Sure. So like this is going back to the vision problem, right? So that's exactly what I'm talking about. Is there a problem that we need to address before we can enhance, right?
Yes.
So there's a list that I usually give coaches to hone in on with their players, but timing is definitely a huge piece of that. So are they swinging too soon? Are they swinging too late? In tennis, it's really about how good and how fast their setups are. Because I don't know what age group that you coach, but if it spans all of youth, most players or most parents will come and say, oh, they're so slow, they can't get to the short balls, they can't get there. Well, most of that stems from vision, because these kids today are doing everything up close, and they're looking at their iPhones and they're looking at their iPads and they're studying, and that's fine. That's all where we are as a society, but that's not where tennis is performed. So there are cells in the back of the brain that are more for distance, depthy environments, and then other cells that are for flatter, nearer environments. And if the kid is spending too much time in the flatter, nearer, the depthy distance is not being developed. So these kids aren't seeing the ball off the racket. They might be seeing it 20/20, and that's an important point. Do not conflate 20/20 with good vision.
No.
That's the main problem. So I was a collegiate soccer player, and I started getting headaches every time I read, and I was a biochemistry major, so that didn't really work. Okay. And my mom was like, oh, maybe it's your eyes. And I'm like, it's not my eyes. I'm 20/20. And she said, that is not what vision is, right? This was my first inkling into vision versus eyesight. So she took me to this doctor that now I am. And I went through vision training, but I didn't go through vision training for my soccer game. I went through vision training to get my headaches to go away when I read. But the first thing I noticed, my soccer game got better, and I was already a very good athlete. So I started thinking, this is really cool. And then as I kept going, my headaches went away, and then I knew I needed to provide this service for other players. So I got into this because I was a patient first and an athlete first, and a student athlete, most importantly. So what happens to these players when they're up close all the time? They don't develop the distance portion with the depth in the depthy environment. So they're not seeing the ball off the racket. They're not seeing where it is. They might be able to see what it is. They can tell it's a tennis ball, but the where. And so what I work with first with every single tennis player is their distance depth perception, which very few people even test in an eye exam. They usually test you at near, but I don't care. So I tell players all the time, if you make a decision on where that ball is here, you're going to be eating it. You're not going to be hitting it. So I need them to know where the ball is before it crosses the net, so that they're set up. They are where they're supposed to be almost instantaneously, but certainly before the ball comes over the net. So they're not caught off guard. So that's the number one thing I'm looking at in a lot of these players, is how well they can locate the ball off of the racket, which is distance, depth perception. And that's highly, highly trainable. The 20/20 number is not trainable. That's really down to your ocular anatomy. That is where it is. I never tell patients or players that we're going to change their prescription. Sometimes it happens, depending on the nature of their prescription, but I never say that that's the reason. That is an anatomical length of your eye, strength of your lens and cornea, and we put contact lenses on or whatever to make that 20/20 number there, but that's not what this is.
Yes.
So 80% of the brain is visual. Only 5% of that 80 is your 20/20 number. So 75% of the rest of the visual pathways in the brain have nothing to do with 20/20. However, that's foundational. So if they are blurry, then it's harder to develop all that.
So, because many times, I said to some of the kids, I said, listen, I think you have to go to an eye doctor. They take them to ophthalmology and said you have 20/20
Oh yeah, no,
vision. And then, we don't really get anywhere. It's almost like the problem is still there, even though they got contacts or they got new glasses. And now, another question I wanted to ask you, since you're expert on this field. So nowadays there are virtual reality pieces, and there is one that is created for tennis, and I bought it. Okay, I bought it. This is about a year ago. I bought it, and I use it a lot. And I want to give you my take on the use, but I want to know if you have the reason why this happened to me. So when I first started using this VR system, my vision was really bad on the system, but really good on the tennis court, because I have done vision training for a long time. And when I got good on the VR, it seems like I lost my depth perception on the field, on the tennis court. And my take, without not being an expert like yourself, is because I think you can't really move your eyes on the VR.
Yeah.
Am I right or wrong?
Yeah, well, there's a couple different things about VR that, I mean, and I don't want to make any enemies here because I have colleagues that are developing these systems, and I think one thing am I really dark on your screen? Because I'm dark on mine.
You're dark. I don't know why you
I don't know why, because I didn't change like my location of I don't want to
I don't know what happened.
I'm like this ghost talking to you.
So,
oh, there's some more light. I don't know why. I wonder if
what happened here.
I wonder if I change
well, you know what? Later. Yeah.
So the only reason why vision training works is because vision is in the brain, and the brain is plastic. It has nothing to do with your eyeball. I'm going to start there.
Okay.
So your brain is we call it neuroplasticity. And so because the brain is plastic and it can be enhanced, we call on those visual pathways in the brain, and that's what we enhance. There are certain necessities to become or to be at your most neuroplastic. One of them is novelty and patient or player interest, right?
Okay.
So if the player or the kid, and I tell teachers this all the time, if you've got an uninterested kid, you do not have a learning kid. You just don't. You might be teaching them a skill that they're going to practice at that moment, but it's not going to generalize. They're not going to, you're doing nothing for them. You have to find a way to get the kid interested. Okay. And that's what I like about virtual reality, is that it's something new. It pulls on that novelty piece that the brain needs for neuroplasticity. It can interest the player, it can interest the kid, but I don't really love them for actually training the brain. They are synthetic. We are training the person to perform in real time and real space. So with my players, I want to train them in real time and real space. Okay. When you're looking into a virtual reality machine, its depth is simulated, but it's still a flat screen. And it's close to you, even though it has the appearance of optical infinity, it's close to you. So what happens when your brain knows and your eyes know that something is close to you, they come in real tight. It's called proximal convergence or proximal accommodation. Well, now you take this headpiece off and you're calibrated, your visual system is all tight and up close, but that's not where you need to perform. You need to perform loose and far away. So I'm sure there's plenty of people smarter than me that will tell me why they're developing a virtual reality program that doesn't do that. But in my experience and understanding the neuroanatomy, like that is what happens. So I don't train on virtual reality. I think it's cool to put the player in there just to get them interested and again, to switch it up or mix it up. But it's certainly not where the bulk of the training of my training is.
Yeah, so interesting, what you said, they were pushing this. That's why I kind of bought it. And I said, it might be interesting for the kids. But like I said, I tested myself and I was kind of upset because I spent
made it worse.
$100 and it didn't seem to work. It seems like it's the opposite. Now, the other question, I have a little tool that I bought from baseball players, and I wanted to check with you. So this is like a little pair of glasses. I don't know
Yep.
if you can actually
Yep,
see
I
it.
see that.
The whole idea is you put it, and they're forcing you to turn your head to send the basically both eyes into the ball. Now, question that I wanted to ask you is this, because the nose piece is kind of big. That's the whole idea. So that way you really have to turn into that direction. So do you think that this being a little bit bigger would affect the way that the conversion happens or not?
So yeah, you're basically nasally occluding a little bit when you
Yes.
use that big nose piece, which is then your temporal visual space. So again, I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen the research on those glasses. We nasally occlude in therapy for different reasons, like if a kid has an eye turn and things like that. But I would much rather teach a player to be straight with the reason, let's just back up. The reason that you want both eyes straight is for depth perception. You don't have depth perception with one eye.
That's
so
right.
we're going back to the same thing I was talking about initially is
Yes.
two-eyed vision means if the two eyes work together as a team, which is a huge if,
Yes.
they come together and that's what gives you the 3D vision. If they don't work together really great, then that's a mess and the player will actually do better turning their head. And that's part of the assessment. But one of the first things I do when I work with baseball players or tennis players or anything is I look at their swing, I look at their stance, how far apart their legs are, how their head is when they swing. Because if you've got a tilt, you can't fuse easily, meaning you can't use your eyes together as a team when you're tilting. So if you've got players that are hitting like that, they can turn, but they can't tilt. And so analysis of the way they're swinging is really important, and teaching them to get their eyes to point forward is really important. But I've never used those glasses. I don't know. The implication of cutting off any part of the retina makes me very skeptical or very nervous in sports, because the peripheral vision is your wear system. It tells you where things are. And sports, that's really important to know where the other players are. For a tennis player to know where the confines of the court are, so that you can stay within the parameters, or if someone's stealing a base, for example. So that's all. But I mean, I haven't worked with those glasses. There's plenty of glasses that are being developed. There's ones that look at eye movements, and so you can track a player's eye movements. And so what I usually say with those devices is they're great for practice. And let's play around with them and practice. Let's see, let's see if it helps. Usually I want to develop the player's muscular awareness. So like, what does it feel like when your eyes are pointed forward at your neck? Like, what are some other cues so that you don't need that when you're really in game time, right? Because I don't want you to wear it.
I see.
So like, how can we cue our bodies so that our bodies are helping us understand
what's really happening?
Yeah, and then there are ways in vision training that we use, and I'm happy to give you some tools that you can kind of look at on your own players, but maybe not in the video, but you and I separately. But there are ways to know if the both eyes are not only just looking straight, but actually acting straight. Because those glasses, they're going to make it so that both eyes have to look straight, but we don't know if they're really working.
The eyes are converging correctly. Yes.
I mean, you have to work together well. Otherwise, you're going to put the player at a deficit, right? And there are plenty of patients that their binocular vision isn't developed yet. And so they're actually a better hitter with one eye because the depth perception isn't developed. So they're using other cues to hit. But once we develop the depth perception, it's always better to have it, for sure. So that's just one aspect. Eye movements are another really important. Your smooth movements, but also your quick focusing changes, your near far focusing changes, which goes into the eye teaming again. So we look at eye movements also really big time in sports vision. And that's something you'll see all the time. The players hitting the lights when, you see this all the time. And that's really working eye movements with eye-hand coordination. And tennis players and anybody who's moving fast, I look, I think often what's overlooked is eye-foot reaction times. So I always tell my players, I don't care how good your swing is if your feet can't get you to the ball. You could have the most beautiful swing on the planet, but if your feet are slow, you're never going to use that swing. So we work a lot on foot speed, but eye-foot coordination, because the faster your eye can tell your brain what you're seeing, the faster the brain can tell the feet what the heck to do. So that whole pathway, and the pathway from the brain to your feet, is much longer than the pathway from the brain to your hands. So it takes a little bit longer And that one we really highly look at in tennis players. A lot of people think that the kid's slow to get to the net, like I said. So we want to, once we develop their binocularity so that they know where the ball is, we want them also to develop a quickness or a visual quickness around that, and a quickness of visual decision making, like should I go or should I not?
That's right.
And then pairing that obviously with the auditory system, because the sound of the ball off the
sound
racket
of the
is
ball
really-
is what it kind of
Exactly.
kicks in a little faster than the vision.
Exactly. So, well, they all go together. They all go together.
I see. So now the other question I wanted to ask you, you're talking, I like what you're saying regarding to the specificity of being on the field when you're doing some of this vision training or now question, you know, there is all these boards with lights and all these different tools that are basically off the court or off the field. How do we know? And when I tell people maybe you need to be doing some of that, sometimes they say, but how do we know that that might translate into the field? How do they know if this translates into the field? I don't know how you do your training. I'm asking you.
Yeah. I mean, every one of these.
Do you do the stuff with the lights? And
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I never do it blindly. I don't just do it without knowing what the player needs work on. So every single one of these technologies has God, my computer's going crazy. I'm sorry. Every single, I might have to log that. Can you see my low battery popping up on the thing, or you don't see that?
I don't see that. No,
okay, good. So maybe you can't hear it on your end. Maybe it's just on mine. Every single one of these tech companies has their own research that they can point to, because they wouldn't have been, they probably wouldn't have been invested in if they didn't have.
You freeze on me. There you
All
go.
right. I'm on my
No worries.
a little bit funny, but
That's okay.
So what I was saying is that every single one of these things that you use has its own, usually has its own set of research that it's conducted. But what I guess I would say to that, and this is all the hype now, is like, well,
Yes.
where's your evidence? Where's your evidence? And like, I get that, and that's important. But like, where's the evidence that those squats that you do on the side of the court are helping their game,
That's right?
100%.
Yeah.
You just have to use logic at some point. Like if you're increasing the neuromuscular pathway of your eye movements, why would it hurt you, right?
Yes.
And like that's the thing I always tell my parents in the practice is like, look, vision is foundational. So why not just look at it like that? Like, let me give my kids the best foundation to not only excel on the court or on the field or whatever their sport is, but also to be their best in the classroom. Because let's be honest, most of these players are not going to go pro. They're going to be student athletes. And so when we strengthen the visual system for sport, we almost always, depending on who's the trainer, but we're always strengthening their visual skills for the classroom and beyond. So I just don't see why not, right? And
Why not?
there's a lot of research around training eye movements, training depth of perception, training all that. A lot of it's through neurology. And if you go and Google vision therapy, that's different, but there is good research there too. But a lot of the research is there, and I'm happy to send you over like, you know, the pages that we
yes, I like I said, I 100% believe on this. You know, I know that Nike started some of these programs with vision training about 15 years ago or so. So I know believes, you know, just I wanted to see if you would have a way to, when somebody says, well, you know, how do we know that it works? You know, a different answer. You know, I believe it works, you know, because I couldn't do conversions when I first started with vision training, and I was doing it because I was training somebody that I felt like didn't have good vision. That's how I ran into this. So I bought a program from a guy, a doctor up in California, and he said, where he teaches you how to converge and divert. And that's how it started, and I think it's fantastic. I mean, I'm 100% believer on this, you know. But
well, there is research, and I'm happy I'm happy to scrounge it up. And it's not even a scrounge, because like we do get asked this a lot. Obviously, it's anytime in the medical world, you definitely are going to get asked about research. But I guess I think, you know, research is there, and it's evidence based. A lot of it's evidence informed. You know, you're gonna look at all the evidence and you're gonna go, oh well, I mean, as a person who is a practitioner, I can look at this evidence and then extrapolate it into like what we're doing and understand the neurology associated with it. But I mean, I guess I would just ask any parent, like when you send your kid to the occupational therapist, like, or the physical therapist, where's their research that what they're doing is helping? And so it's not to kick the can, it's just to say it's important to ask all areas and like look at because what happens is that like it's so normal to go to your personal trainer. Right? That's so normal. That's been going on for 200 years to train sports. So now we don't ask questions about it. But so vision, though it's not new, honestly, vision training
it's been around for 30, 40 years.
Actually, even longer. And actually ophthalmology came up with it in the early days, because they didn't want to have to do operations on kids' eyes because it was really, really invasive. And so ophthalmology actually came up with vision training, and then optometry sort of took it over because we tend to like the functional piece. You know, we get taught in the structural, obviously, but we optometrists by nature kind of like the functional side of things. So ODs kind of took it over, but it was developed by ophthalmology and quite a long time ago. But there's been great studies out there. University of California system has done great studies on vision training, and it's all over the place. But and I'll send you a list if the parents need to see it for sure.
Yes, I would love to. You know, that way I have it. You know.
Yeah, and then the website that I sent you, the ISVA, they're going to have good resources too.
Okay, so the other question I want to ask you, because you know the red and blue glasses that are around for vision therapy. You know, there is plenty of kids that. The other day I was having a player. I say, I think you might have some problem with the vision, and he came out with one of those programs that he bought out of nowhere. With vision, with the red and blue glasses, and I was reading up a little bit on those, and they said that might hurt your vision. So I was just curious. I wanted to ask you this. You know, do you think that those things could be dangerous? You know, like the 3D.
I mean, again, I guess it just really depends on who's doing it and why. I mean, we use a lot of red-blue glasses or red-green glasses are just a way to separate the right eye from the left eye.
Okay.
So then to know if they're working together, and you can have environments that are of perceived depth when you have a red-blue glass. So it's a way of training simultaneous perception, like both eyes see it at the same time, and then eventually, hopefully, get to the point where you have stereopsis, which is the most immersive type of depth perception. But again, unless you're doing it with a trained professional, most of these kids are putting red-green glasses on and then staring at their phone on an app. Like
that's right. That's not the. Yeah,
I don't see it. Now, if I use an app with my players, it's to do something at home that we've done in clinic that I want to cement the neurology because it touches on the ball. I mean, I can build these new pathways or strengthen new pathways, but if they're not practiced, you're going to go back to your regular neurological habits, so to speak. So when we're first paving these roads, they're like goat paths, and then you keep on practicing them until they turn into super highways, and you really have to do it under conditions of extreme physical and mental stress. Otherwise, they're not going to become automatic. And so my players, like I always tell them, I don't want you thinking in a game. I don't want you thinking in a match. Thinking is for practice, right? And then I don't want you even analyzing your game in a match. I want you just going out there and playing. Don't think, just do. Don't think, just do. It's like this thing that, because the time for cognition, the time for analysis is practice. And that's the time that you can analyze, and that's the time that you can practice those skills, and you practice them so much that they're automatic, so that when you go to game, when you go to match, you don't have to think about it. It's just ingrained in you. And so that's part of the training. You can't just go in for 2 weeks, do something, and then go back to your life, because you're going to just go back to the way your brain is very wired for efficiency. So if it's going to go down a road that it doesn't need to think about, it's going to, even if it's not serving you, it's just going to go down the most practiced road. So you might see, like, let's say we work on a player together. I'm happy to do that.
Yes.
You might see me giving them red-blue glasses or red-green glasses for homework, but they are under extreme watch and clear instruction from the doctor. Like, they're not just going home and doing that.
You're going home and doing that. Exactly. Okay. Got you.
But now, can it hurt you? Probably not. But it might not help you. And then it goes back to those parents asking, why the heck are we doing this?
Why Okay. Fair enough. So how, the other thing I wanted to ask you, I went to, so when I was researching all this, I was trying to work with a guy. You probably heard about this company, Synaptech. I did the depth perception test, okay? And when I first did it, it didn't work for me. I mean, basically, it was bad. This is about 10, 15 years ago. So, and the guy told me that almost 80% of the kids, or a lot of them, for whatever reason, the depth perception is bad in most of the kids. That is just not there. I never asked you at the time, why is that this skill, it cannot disappear or fades away, even though these kids or athletes are chasing a ball? Why is the reason that this could go bad? Because
I mean, that's what I was saying in the beginning. So we have in our brain, we have monocular flat cells, and then we have binocular depthy cells. Okay. And those cells, if they're not used, they're not developed. So we are our kids are mostly in flat environments. If you think about their day, they get up, they eat breakfast, maybe they watch TV in their morning, maybe they read a book, but very few of them are going out and playing a game of football or something before they go to school, right? So they're doing what they're doing, and then they go to school, and they stare at smart boards, and they stare at Chromebooks, and they stare at books, which I am not saying let's not be readers. I am all for the academic piece, but we just have to look at the habits. And so then they come home and they do homework, again, flat. Then they might text their friends on a flat device. Then, just everything they're basically doing. And then their parents ask them to go out to their private tennis instructor for 1 hour and play tennis. Maybe they have a group for 2 hours, but that's 2 hours out of a. So think about the ratio at which or under which those monocular cells, the flat cells, are being developed versus the depth cells. And that's why we see, and I mean, there's a lot of reasons that look at the Florida players, the Florida players, they're out all the time. You're in Chicago, I'm in New York. We got bad weather. Yes. So those Florida players, I don't know about you, but they've got some serious players, and they get to play all year round. They get to be in depthy environments. They're outside more often. Outside really matters. I tell all my players, please get outside. Even my young patients that have nothing to do with sports vision, I say, please get outside. There's a huge correlation between time outside and whether you develop myopia or not, nearsightedness or not. So getting outside is important, but stimulating the two-eyed depthy vision is how you get those cortical cells to grow in the back of your brain. So that's why it can be trained. It's exactly what I'm talking about. It's because those are cells that can actually proliferate if they are stimulated.
Okay, so now I understand. So that's the problem with the screen. Basically, the screen is flat, and it basically you don't use the cells. I didn't understand. I said TV is bad for you, but I didn't. Okay.
Yeah. And most people developing these programs don't either, because they're not eye doctors, and that's okay. But we all have to work together to understand the science, because I just don't think anything really great comes out of doing something that you don't understand. I just don't.
No.
So
yeah, 100%. And I mean, probably these programs that are being developed is because obviously we want to make some money. So that's how that. I mean, yes, and there are good intentions behind, but I think sometimes some pieces are being missed. I think definitely.
And I mean, Synaptic I use. I actually have a call with them today at 2:30. So I'm not saying that I don't like Synaptic. I have no affiliation with them, but I use their stuff. But you have to use it in a way that you understand it. And Synaptic used to be Nike, and they
used to be Nike. Yes.
Yep. Yeah, and so people would be putting these sensory stations in locker rooms, and they just sit there because nobody knows what they're doing with them. So, but the sensory stations are pretty cool. But you do need someone who's coming in there. I think everybody's good at their craft. And when you ask them to step outside of their craft, things tend to go by the wayside because that's not their area of expertise. So if you take that Synaptic sensory station and you throw that in your locker room and you ask one of your personal trainers to get to it with the kids, they're going to go, no, this is not my area of expertise. My area of expertise is personal training. I went to school for that. That's what I'm going to do. So for me, I'm an eye doctor. I am a vision specialist. I want to take that Synaptic sensory station and understand it and utilize it for your kid or for your player. But unless there's somebody who really is trained in the visual system, I think a lot of that stuff kind of goes either unused or underutilized.
Well, what I kind of got from what you're saying, I mean, is that also, like, if the depth perception is not really there, all that stuff is like you just can't really see. I mean, you might react quick, but to what? Because you know where that ball is, right?
Exactly. The wear system is so much more important in sports. And we have a testimonial video that I did with the kids at Mcenroe, because I work with his.
You do? Are you
I'm there
with the Mcenroe Academy?
Yep, I'm their vision person. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah. So when we did a testimonial video, I can send it to you. But the kids, they're so cute. They're like, oh, I can see so much better. I can see so much better. And it's like, well, okay, but if you measured their eyesight before and after, they were 20/20 before and after, but they can see so much better. And that's such a testament to how much more there is to vision than that 20/20 number. And so I'll send you over the video. It's kind of cool. You can see the vision. I took the vision training on court there, and I would have the players on court, and like I'm just about to do their combine. I think it's on the 23rd, but kids come from all over the world to this combine, and I screen them all at the combine.
Oh, wow.
So I do that every year.
They told me, I was talking to somebody probably about 3-4 months ago, and they say that they work with the vision specialists there on site, but I didn't know that was you. No. It was,
Small world.
Okay, good.
Well, that's why I said, do you want somebody in your area, because they can help you really develop this? I mean, so that's why I gave you this, but it wasn't because I didn't want to help you. It was just because I was thinking, if you can develop this relationship with a person in your area, you could get someone to come on court and help you. But
there is nobody here. There
was
a guy. You sent me that website. I tried to contact a Dr. Barry Saylor, that he did some what's the name of the Visual Edge, his company.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And I did bought his software like probably about 10 years ago, and I use it for the depth perception and whatnot, but he never replied. I guess I don't know if he's still in business around here or not. But nobody really doing in Chicago, which is a big city. Vision training.
It's insane.
Yes. So that's why I tried to, I was reaching out to somebody that could be a little bit more trained on this. That way they could explain it. Because again, I think I would say 80-90% of the kids, I don't think that they have good vision, but but they always think that is the swing. But I can tell, that how many kids cannot catch a ball. So if you can really catch a ball, you know you're gonna have a problem seeing.
Yeah,
But
I'll
anyway.
do a couple of things when we get off this call. I'll send you just so you can see
Yeah.
the testimonial video, because I mean, who cares? But also it's kind of fun for you to see the vision training.
Yes.
Not so much for the testimonials, just so you can see it in action. But I'll send you. I have a one pager. Just it's really, really full. Okay, because it's so hard to put all this stuff in one page. But I have a one page just sports vision piece, and on the left side of the one page, it's all the symptoms that you might see in your players that will help you pick up. And so you could literally show this, like, to parents or whatever.
Yes.
And then the bottom of it has all the skills, the visual focus, the depth perception, the eye movements, the peripheral awareness, the visual decision making, all this stuff, that the skills that go into sports. And then the top part is just kind of what you and I have been talking about today, just some of the background. But you can use it. You can take, take what you want out of it or from it, and you can. I'm going to give you my cell phone number, because you can text me when you have a question.
No problem. That would be great. That would be great.
Yeah, because I don't know why. I'm surprised. Chicago's such a big city. I'm from Minnesota, so I grew up in Minneapolis and then went to University of Wisconsin for undergrad. So I have a lot of friends from Chicago, because everybody goes to Wisconsin from Chicago.
Maybe you open a second office here in Chicago, but
well, I love Chicago. Truly love that town. And I've done distance consulting. Like I've done consulting with Wake Forest baseball and things like that. And I've talked to IMG before. And so, I'm not against helping you. I'm not close. So that's why I was like, that's why I reached back out to you. Because once I didn't hear from you, I said, I hope this guy doesn't think I just said,
you blew me
go
up.
away. I was just saying, would it be more helpful to have someone?
No. I mean, I know you're busy, and like I said, I was the way that I was trying to reach out, I was just looking to see who does the sport vision training, and I couldn't find anybody really around here. So that's why, and I saw your website, and I have no idea that you work with the Mcenroe Tennis Academy. I think it's even better. So you know what you're talking about regarding to tennis and obviously.
No, it's probably my biggest population of players is tennis.
Okay, very good. All right, so Anne, I know you told me you're busy, so I don't want to take any more time from you, but thank you so much for this time. It was a pleasure. And
no problem.
I'll send you an email, and you can send me this stuff, your phone number and that page and file, and that will be awesome. Okay.
Cool. Yeah, just let me know if I can help in any way.
No problem.
You didn't have any other questions though? That was it?
That's
all?
So it's kind of short. I mean, maybe I'm not that smart, but now the other question I wanted to ask you, let's say that somebody, because you brought up a lot of binocular vision or conversion diversion, how long do you think that a player to kind of, let's assume that they don't have this conversion and diversion eyes working together, right? How long does it take for somebody to train on this, to get trained?
Pretty quick, 3 months. I used to tell parents, expect to see real change in 3 months, but don't expect to be done in 3 months, because that same thing that we were just talking about with cementing the pathways has to happen after that. But performance changes pretty quick. When I was going through vision therapy as a soccer player, I noticed it within a month or so, but it depends on the awareness of the player, like how into and like any good training program, whether it's coaching, physical training, or even psychological training, vision training follows the same rule, that awareness is a huge piece of success. So you have to help the player understand what they're doing and what they're not doing, and when, and how to correct that behavior, right? That's what you guys are doing, that in coaching all the time. So the more aware the player is, the faster they're going to see change.
I see.
But to get that synaptic score up, let's say you're in the second percentile.
Let's
just go to that screening. To that screening. They come in for a synaptic screening. They're second percentile, which is bad. It means 98 out of 100 people are better than them. They're second percentile in depth perception. How long does that take me to get them up to the 50th percentile, 60th percentile? 8 weeks.
8 weeks. 8 weeks.
Maybe 12 if they're a really tough case, but then from there, we would work on like some more home therapy, maybe
Yes.
move the player to every other week or once a week instead of twice a week and start to taper it. But I would never want them to stop at that time because 3 months is not enough for automaticity. It's not enough for it to be cemented into your brain.
Got you. Now, one more quick question. If a parent is watching this, what would be a way, because I think this will be very, telling for them. What could they do? So let's say, what would there be something I could do to show the kid, listen, your eyes are not good. So what kind of exercise would there be something that will tell them if I
You want to prove it?
all,
You want to prove it to them?
yeah, so that way it's very practical, because otherwise my word against their word, and it's like you gotta go and see this person and talk. What could I
You know what? I think one of the easiest ways for you, easiest thing for you to do is get a bunch of tennis balls, paint different, get a Sharpie, 3 different colors of Sharpie, black,
Okay,
green, red,
okay.
and maybe not green on a tennis ball, black, blue, red. Put a circle on each tennis ball all over, on 4 quadrants.
Okay.
And see how fast the player can tell you what color off the serve, your serve.
The serve. Okay, that's amazing. Okay, that's amazing because they can see it in action. Yeah, that's amazing.
And guess what? Most of your young players, they'll tell you what color it is once it got over the net.
Too late.
Too late. And that's a really good thing to show the parents. Like, that's when they know what's up, is when they call out the color of that.
Okay.
It's not perfect because you're still asking them what, not where, but it's really hard to measure depth perception on a court. But that's a really great drill in general for your players.
Yes.
And the better they get at seeing that quicker, the better they're going to be at reading the ball off the racket.
Okay, that's perfect. That's a really good one. I appreciate it for that little tip. All right, and thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
No problem. Have a good day.